Most fairy tales begin with 4 magic words. Once upon a time. But the story you're about to hear happened more than once. It happened more than twice. In fact, somewhere, it's still happening.
So people are saying that I think rape is okay.
You do.
But what they
No,
don't
I
is that I
don't!
don't.
You're fucking...
Ladies, gentlemen, and laws, welcome to another beautiful dumpster fire courtesy of the internet and 24/7 communication. This, for those of you who don't know, is J.J.PLagiarisms.
Why couldn't we have Special Agent also do something more exciting like, I don't know, having also stop a terrorist conspiracy to blow up a populated area or something? That would have been engaging, unlike the episode where Oso helps a kid play hide and seek.
J.J.PLagiarisms is someone who my mate Stu-Dog has been making videos on since 2019, and that was around the time that J.J.PLagiarisms decided that when he grew up he was going to make a massive tit of himself. Back in 2019, known as Mutated Fern and then Old Painful, J.J.PLagiarisms started talking copious amounts of shit, and it ended up with him saying that he wanted for cartoon child Eric Cartman to be raped.
Screw you guys, I'm going home.
This of course raised some eyebrows because Cartman is an 8 to 10 year old depending on the episode of the show. The show is South Park in case my mum is watching this. JJ, like most twits, doubled down on the stance that was getting him a lot of negative attention and eventually got himself on a podcast with Cadenza and Rogue Internet Man where he completely lost his shit.
Shut the fuck up, you assholes!
Now all of this was in 2019, pre-COVID, so why am I talking about it now? Well, believe it or not, this is like Aladdin and the Adventures of All Time. It is a story that has no beginning and no end, and is still being told. Not because it's a wibbly-wobbly, timey-wimey story about time itself, but because this horse's arse can't stop bringing it up every few months in a cycle that MIT and Mensa scholars have dubbed the J.J.PLagiarism cycle.
So I guess now we're at the Trolls Debunk His Lies part of the JJ cycle. The JJ makes videos about his trolls completely unprovoked, as well as random community post rants and rants about a random Reddit group where he raves about us for little to no reason. Next up we'll have the JJ has a meltdown claiming his trolls are "they're coming after me again," and that part, it's gonna be entertaining as always.
I personally haven't played a big part in this. I haven't even paid that much attention to it, but my attention has gradually grown over the past year because he's done this exact bullshit 2 or 3 times ever since I started properly paying attention, and I can't help but be fascinated because, as most people know, I have a weird fixation on failure. At one point I even went incognito into his server and just watched for a bit, engaged with some of the people who follow him and his content, and eventually got banned for dropping a big stinky truth bomb in the middle of the main lobby. This was months ago, hell it could even be up to a year ago, I legitimately can't remember. I just laughed and moved on with my life, something that Homeboy probably should have done 5 years ago. A few weeks ago, J.J.PLagiarisms dropped another video where he basically tried to restart this cycle all over again. For those of you who are more familiar with my content than anything else, JJ is basically the male version of Nice Lone Wolf. He starts shit, gets attention that he really wanted, then runs away and cries, and then claims that he's being stalked and harassed, even though everything is one-sided. And yes, he does do that thing where people can't comment on his stuff who he doesn't agree with. I checked this video out of morbid curiosity. It should be known that it only existed for under an hour before a neuron did its annual spark in his brain and he realised that he should probably take it down. Either that or his fans would do what they do every time he picks up a microphone and resurrects this 5-year-old drama and utterly humiliates himself.
You don't deserve to live.
It is worth noting two things. The first is that I'm not anyone's fanboy, and I'm not above criticising my friends. If JJ is the innocent party in this, if he is the poor put upon victim, then I'm more than happy to take his side in the situation. I have precedent in this. If you watch my Aspergian Star 2009 documentary, I followed Aspergian Star's content before he started shit with someone, and I said, well, hold on a minute, no, that guy is right and you're full of shit, and that's when that started to turn sour. I also would like to point out as well that I have impartially taken an interest in situations like Gage and Stetson Hardwick, for instance, where I actually examined both sides of things again and came to the conclusion that no, Stetson's insane. So the point that I'm trying to make is a point that will go completely over JJ's head because he'll write the narrative without even watching. But I do want to make it clear that I don't just side with whoever is my friend currently. I would happily step out and say, okay, no, you guys are completely wrong if they were wrong. And we're going to basically take a look at this video with a fresh pair of eyes from someone who isn't directly involved, but is aware of what's going on. And I'm going to give this a very fair judgment. So anyway, join me as I enucleate this video with a fucking spoon.
So if you've been a member of my channel for an extended period of time,
you guys have my condolences.
You'll probably know about the trolls who accuse me of being a pedophile, and depending on the person, you may or may not have seen their videos. But if you're an audience member, I presume you didn't fall for it.
Yes, they likely will know a lot about this, because this twit brings it up every 6 months whenever he wants views or whenever he thinks that people aren't looking and he sees an opportunity to hijack the narrative.
I think I've made a fatal mistake in how I spoke about the trolls.
Just the one.
Because in a lot of my previous videos about them, I said they were stupid and had no idea what they were talking about.
The people who I'm aware of who JJ has just called stupid are quite articulate and well informed, but hey, they don't swallow JJ's narrative about things that they themselves were there for and bore witness to, so I guess that makes them idiots in the Lance Rene School of Human Intelligence.
And maybe my arguments might have been or felt all over the place.
There's no maybe about that statement.
But I think my mistake was not admitting something I didn't want to admit.
That everything without exception is entirely your fault, and you could have stopped this idiocy 5 years ago, but instead you perpetuated it all the way through your late teen years, and are now ruining your young adult life with it, even though you could have shut your face hole 5 years ago, and by now you could have come back and got everything removed by growing up and admitting you were stupid when you were 16, which is something that most functioning adults do. It's worth remembering, JJ was 16 when he started this stupid shit, and he somehow stands by his actions from when he was 16, at 21 years of age. I'm sorry, but this is just alien to me. I cannot even defend the stupid shit that I said and did at 16 when I was 17. And this fool is still fighting and dying on the first hill he ever came upon. There's no wiggle room. What he said was factually wrong, ethically questionable, and it sounded like your average argument made by a stupid 16-year-old boy trying to tell it how it is and be edgy at the same time. Most people who grow, even on the slightest level, would look back on this as an adult and say, wow, I was a twat back then, huh? But because this clown hasn't grown an inch in 5 years, 5 years that he really should have done the most growing he'd ever do in his life, he's still adamant that he didn't say or do a single thing wrong. And it perplexes me. It genuinely does.
That the trolls are actually smarter than that, and knew exactly what they were doing.
Yes, they knew exactly what they were doing. They heard you say some stupid and crazy shit that made you sound like you belong in a sanitarium, and then they pointed and laughed at you because you made an absolute arse clown of yourself. At least you told one truth in this whole video, even if you omitted the later details.
Starting from the very beginning. Now, the trolls themselves would try to vilify me with arguments like, J.J.PLagiarisms told a rape victim they deserve their sexual abuse.
Which is categorically true, by the way. He did say this to a rape victim because they told him that his opinions that rape should be weaponized against criminals and that people that JJ doesn't like. And that was one of the main issues that people had, was that he said that he would like to see Eric Cartman from South Park SA'd because of his low moral character, except Eric Cartman is a child of 8 to 10 years old, depending on the season. JJ has an odd fascination with rape to the point that the word was used hundreds of times in his server. I believed it was used around 150 times, give or take. He's also on record as to telling someone that they deserve to be raped as a child of 12, and as I mentioned before, told someone claiming to actually be a victim of it that they deserved it, and later tried to justify it with, they provoked me.
And then show a screenshot. And always in my defense, I point out that the bitch had it coming by provoking me.
And they're lying. Because they didn't have video of it happening from 5 different angles, presumably.
But it goes even further than that. I fully realize that the trolls were always relying on gaslighting and strawmanning me.
How do you strawman a human scarecrow? Which is basically what you've become at this point. Like, you're so full of straw at this point that you're frolicking through the fields like a thatched pube twat, singing, "If I only had a brain." You're an idiot.
So they had an excuse to label me as a pedophile.
Mate, if the cops raided your house, right, I'd bet 10 quid on them finding something on one of your hard drives. I would bet 10 quid that that would happen.
So I would either double down or say something nasty back, or both.
Well, that's the thing. If you know this, why do you then just say shitty things that you know you will be quoted on? I have said shitty things. Like, I'm not denying that. I've said shitty things about Stetson, the Lone Wolf, probably Lance Renee and Andrew Velasco, but I'm not going to act like anyone but me made me say those shitty things. I don't really regret them or take them back when 3 of them are nonces and one of them is a rancid bitch who is basically the female version of you.
And it was a vicious cycle I could not escape from.
But you did escape from it, and then you went back. Because without it, you're nothing. You're like Baron Praxis and the Metalheads. Except the Metalheads just want you to fuck off and leave them alone. You see, I know JJ's type. He's the same thing as Ronnie or Nice, where I told them to fuck off years ago, and ignored them for months and months and months, and yet I get mentioned every other day on their community tab. Then they have the clitting nerve to call me a stalker. And it's the same thing that JJ does. All communication has been entirely one-sided, coming from him for years. It's the same disingenuous shit. If he'd stopped about 5 years ago, nobody would even remember him. And he hates that, because infamy is the only thing that the talentless little runt can achieve. He's never going to be famous or beloved, or even feared or respected. But he can be a joke. And that is the closest thing he can be to being somebody. Court Jester is a title.
I realized that the advantage the trolls had over me was that I was too blinded by my anger to get my strongest point across.
Wait, you had a point? Seriously? At what fucking point was this?
They're not idiots, they're intelligent psychopaths, and they knew exactly how to push my buttons to get me to break down.
Disagreeing with your opinions and calling you stupid is enough to do that, to be honest.
It's how they made me max level furious, and got me to say the most fucked up stuff I've ever said in my life. And they were planning it. So at the very beginning, I was talking about how I thought Eric Cartman from South Park deserved to be raped himself.
Oh, fuck me, here we go.
You know, because he was a rapist.
Who rapes the rapist? What a philosophical question. My answer would probably be JJ, because I'm fairly sure that at this point he's doubling down into a society where he rapes rapists and gets paid for it. It's the only way that this farce can logically end.
I know that the trolls were completely strawmanning me, and those two alleged rape victims seized the opportunity to make me look bad.
No, they presented the opportunity to make you look bad and you seized it. And now you continue to do so, even to this day. He says alleged rape victims because he doesn't want to live in the reality where he's a shit person who told an actual rape victim that they deserved it. So now he has to call them a liar on top of it so that he can masturbate without dealing with the shame of whose hand is on his junk.
By asking me whether or not I thought they deserved their abuse.
It is a valid question. Because if you think that other people deserve that abuse, you're going to meet someone who you are going to wrongfully say that they did and regret it later. You know, a bit like you are at this moment in time, 5 years down the line.
They knew it was not the point I was making. Cartman was 100% guilty, and the 10-year-old argument is weak because it's a false equivalence, because the standards of the South Park universe are different from our own.
You know, I'm just finding myself utterly baffled that 5 years down the line he's still making this exact argument. Like, it was fantastic when at the end of it all he's arguing as to why him advocating for the whole Cartman thing wasn't a bad thing. I don't know what he is.
And they absolutely knew that, but didn't care. They just strawmanned me to make it look like it was advocating sexual assault against children in general, when no, it was against Cartman and those like him, aka other rapists.
Someone approached you and told you that they were essayed as a child and you told them that they deserved it and that they are lying. I think it's fair enough to say that you are a rape advocate, given how many people who have disagreed with you you have advocated the raping of.
The trolls may use the argument that, oh, I directly asked them what they did to deserve their abuse, but the thing is, I misspoke due to the incredible amount of stress I was put under when I realized they were trying to accuse me of being a pedophile for insincere reasons.
Well, the first thing is that I adore how this guy is almost Nero-esque in how narcissistic he is. He admits here that he misspoke, implying that he knows that what he said is completely unacceptable, but it's entirely everybody else's fault but his, even though he said it. He doesn't apologize or retract, because even though the elevator stinks of egg after he farted, it is not his fault that he farted and stunk the elevator full of eggy farts. It's your fault for wearing jeans, triggering his bowel to say the one intelligent thing that would come out of JJ that day. Second thing, you said that you wanted a child to be that. That is an understandable trigger for scrutiny. You absolute goddamn buffoon.
I remember in that same conversation, if you could call it that, I also asked them that they had to know the point I was making.
I don't think there are enough bath salts in the world to allow anyone to see the point that you are making. It is too warped and too fucked for a functioning brain to comprehend. And this is proven by the fact that nobody agrees with you on this. No one. People support you, but none of them actually agree with your ideas, agree with what you said, especially not publicly. Nobody said that you were right when this was brought up in your server and you went into a flop sweat. All people could give was excuses and the "it's been years" defense. But nobody was able to defend this stupidity. It is a position that cannot be defended.
And they, along with Rogue, said no. And thinking about it now, it makes me furious, because they were lying through their teeth. They didn't misunderstand what I was saying, because it's not something you misunderstand if you listen.
Well, no, they didn't misunderstand what you were saying. They listened, they heard utter shite, it went into their brain told them it was utter shite, so they understood that it was utter shite. That is normal, that is not a problem.
They just wanted an excuse to frame me as a pedophile.
Well, it's a good thing that you weren't giving copious amounts of text, audio, and video evidence to back up that narrative. Oh. Wait, fuck. Never fucking mind them.
And if that meant propagated that they were assaulted when they were kids and trying to strawman my argument, then that was fine.
So this is where the love child of Wayne Knight and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man can fuck off, because this is where he starts calling out the victims who told him that what he said was fucked, and accusing them of lying, because the delusional little cunt seems to think that this further cements him as the hero of the story.
This is how I know for a fact that the so-called rape victims are actually compulsive liars.
I just have to warn you that no facts feature in the insane babblings of this dropped, phased baby's ramblings. I do apologise to the word facts for being butchered in this video that I'm covering, and I can only hope that our government provides you with reparations to repair the damage done to you and your people.
I mean, after I had left the voice chat, Rogue and the alleged rape victim and everyone else in that chat started talking absolute dog shit about me advocating child molestation.
Mainly because you did.
But here's the absolutely damning revelation I've had. You know how the trolls cry endlessly about me telling an alleged rape victim that they deserve their abuse? Yeah, well, what if I told you she wanted me to say that so she could dig up more dirt on me?
I don't understand how the fuck what you said worked. Was the dirt locked away behind a voice-activated vault that needed a recording of you being a cunt to open it? Surely she could just dig up the dirt anyway. It's almost like you're full of shit or something.
And I was too blinded by anger to see it.
You also masturbate 6 times a day to your own reflection, which is another thing that blinds you.
She was completely gaslighting me by asking me directly whether or not I thought she deserved her abuse.
She gaslit me by asking me directly? That's a statement I just heard. But yeah, if someone says something to you directly, it's not gaslighting. I really wish people would know what the word meant before using it. In fact, I'd actually advocate that a law needs to be passed, that people need to attend classes and pass an exam before they're legally allowed to use it without a cop shooting them.
But that's not all she said. She also called me a pedo and said that I deserve to be locked in jail.
All perfectly valid points.
Even though she had no evidence that I was a pedophile.
Again, I'd bet cash that you were one. That you had something incriminating on one of your devices. Because someone like you who says the things that you say is a ticking time bomb just waiting to be revealed.
She was strawmanning me and she knew it.
Strawmanning? Gaslighting? I'm going to take these words away from you. You don't get to use them until you demonstrate to the rest of the class that you know what they mean.
So my angry response is actually completely justified when you consider this.
Again, says a shit thing that's not okay, but he doesn't apologise, doesn't retract, doesn't make any form of effort to improve the situation. He just goes on to put himself on a pedestal because he's fucking delusional. And he will always be the hero of his own narrative, even when doing all of the actions of a villain.
After that, you probably know what happened. The trolls had the idea to trick me onto coming into a podcast.
They invited you. You showed up. Absolute master of deception.
And humiliating me in a 3 against 1. They schemed to make me look weak and pathetic.
How do you need 3 people to make you look like something that you clearly are?
So it makes me wonder if Rogue had actually planned to gaslight and strawman me.
You know, I really wish I could send an electric shock directly to JJ's balls every time he said straw man or gaslight in this video. I swear to Christ, I never want to hear those words again after this.
For talking about the Cartman shit. It seems too well planned to be a coincidence. Not to mention that it wasn't the first time I expressed the Cartman shit.
I actually know this to be true because Cadenza said that you saying it before was what made them set the whole thing up, so you'd basically publicly do it and humiliate yourself. But again, that's everybody else's fault, right?
So he already knew I had the idea. Realizing what I do now, it's not actually a crazy JFK conspiracy theory after all. It's actually plausible that he planned this, all of this the whole time, because he's a psychopath and doesn't mind throwing someone else under the bus to account for his lack of morals. I mean, he lied about reporting me to the police to flat out intimidate me.
I'm fairly sure that the police report at some point was a real thing. I don't know if it was fully filed, or if something came up that eased the concerns based around the issues at the time, that suggested that members of your family were in danger around you. I don't know the full details of that story, but from what I remember of being told about it, there was at one point reason to believe that it was true. And I believe they were looking into taking up some form of legal action to protect the people who they believe were in danger from you. And I believe that died when they realized that they weren't actually in danger from you.
And that is pure evil, because he knew I wasn't a pedophile. He just pretended that I was for his sick kicks.
Well, he only had your words as reference, and your words clearly suggested that you were.
All of his evidence that I was a pedophile after all were alleged confessions by me, which were really me saying the most screwed up shit I could think of off the top of my head to counter back at the horrible things the trolls said to me.
So, just to clarify, you saying stupid and fucked up shit got you into this situation. So you said even worse and even stupider and even more fucked up shit to get back at them, in quotation. Yes, because when someone throws an accusation your way, the best response is to get a big ring binder full of evidence that suggests that the accusation might be true, and then throw it at their heads. Just hope that they don't look at the thing you just fucking threw at them. I also like as well that this idiot legitimately sits here and says, I was saying the worst things that I could come up with as a self-defense. Like, him being a shit cunt somehow exonerates him of the accusation of being a shit cunt. Like, I don't know what it is with a certain generation, but for some reason people don't seem to understand that saying edgy shit results in people looking at you differently. People don't understand that cause of effect. People say awful shit for the reaction, but then when they get that reaction and it lasts longer than 5 minutes, these people don't know what to do with it.
He knew that I never raped my dog. I was joking about my dog grooming himself. And he knew that I knew that was what my dog was doing.
He knew that I knew. Yes, this isn't a JFK conspiracy, it's a perfectly rational theory that requires telepathy to exist through computers in order for it to be real. Also, to clarify, as JJ fails to do so, JJ drew attention to himself as he started to talk about his dog licking his crotch, and doing so basically got people's attention, especially after he started talking about some other weird and sexual things involving his dog. Now, at this time, red flags were raised, and a lot of the quote-unquote trolls, i.e. anyone who is aware of this clown's existence, with any critical thinking skills whatsoever, have said after a certain point that nothing really came of this stuff, and it was JJ going into the realm of TMI rather than Andrew Velasco territory. Again, your quote-unquote trolls are such nice people that they dropped it the second that they realised it wasn't true. Because I swear to Christ, right? There are quote-unquote trolls out there who would use that against you for the rest of your life. and you would never be able to shake it off, even if you could categorically prove it to not be true, because the first lie wins with some people.
Of course he wasn't masturbating. That was just a joke I made up.
It is great that he just ends it there.
And what's absolutely hypocritical is the first time I said that, the people in the voice chat burst into laughter, but then later told others about it and painted me in a light that I was a sick fuck who molested his dog.
Probably because you painted yourself in that light and were too stupid to realise it.
So even before the trolls turned hostile, they were straw-manning me before then. And it's this revelation that makes me even more angry, because they knew what I was saying, and they thought it would be funny to pretend I meant something else by it. I mean, it would be one thing if they were genuinely moronic and actually thought that, but they clearly didn't. They knew full well what I was saying, and decided to spin me out of context, or worse, flat out lie about what I said, and how they were all complicit in that disgusts me.
Alright, but you've yet to even tell the part of the story where anyone lied about what you said, because from the story you just told, nobody lied about what you said. So where is the lie? Better yet, prove that there was a lie at all.
If you've watched the trolls' more recent videos, they've also walked back on the accusations of me being a pedophile or zoophile, which is a cowardly thing to do.
So, they should continue to press those accusations, is what you're saying. I don't think anyone has ever flat out said that you're a nonce. You just give off sussy vibes, and honestly, having dealt with the likes of Andrew Velasco, Cranium, Ronnie Vane, Lance Renee, Michael Mattis, and nonsense of that variety, the Venn diagram between you and them is basically a circle at this point. You're just as eager to be a prick, but you can't be seen in a negative light because you throw a massive fit over it. You're so self-absorbed, you're incapable of moving on, you say fucked up shit and only backpedal when you get clapped back, and people who criticise you have to be demonised instead of criticised for daring to say anything remotely negative about the deity that is J.J.PLagiarisms. You and these awful people have so much in common. You're the same animal. You might not be to the extreme of them, but you have gone down the same path as people like Ronnie Vane. You haven't threatened to shoot up a school like Ronnie Vane, but I can't rule it out as a possibility in your future.
To merely walk back on a super serious accusation, but knowing what I know now, where nowadays they mostly rely on posting screenshots of me at max level fury saying the nastiest things ever to manipulate people into siding with them.
Guys, people keep using footage of me maiming and killing animals to manipulate people into thinking I'm a bad person and siding against me. I don't know how it keeps happening, but it does. From what I can tell, this isn't about sides, it's about informing people because you lie constantly and try to hijack and paint a narrative that's clearly not there so that you can save your own ass.
The gaslighting and strawmanning with the pedophile and dog fucking accusations played their purpose in making me angry enough to lash out, so they're not needed anymore when you've got new material like me out of anger once again telling an alleged rape victim they deserve their abuse.
So, you told a rape victim that they deserved their abuse, called them a liar with no proof or any form of basis to form a hypothesis, besides them disagreeing with you.
When they totally had it coming because they were strawmanning and gaslighting me. Not to mention that they probably aren't rape victims at all. They've just made that up to make me look bad, and that's just disgusting.
Yeah, he said that. I actually feel redundant. He's digging his own fucking grave now. Soon he'll beat himself to death with the shovel he started digging with, and I won't even have to shoot him.
It's since made me skeptical of anyone who says they've been through some hardships like sexual abuse or getting PTSD during a war. But
yeah, I know you have burns all over your face and every time a car backfires you freak out, but I think you're lying because I said that Cartman should be essayed once online and rape victims called me stupid, and they can't be real rape victims and also disagree with me, so you must be making up the whole war veteran thing. That's the summisery of what he just said, because he's a goddamn idiot.
Because I know there's people scummy enough to lie about it. And even if they were telling the truth, as I pointed out, they were straw-manning and gaslighting me.
Yeah, you managed to cover all bases there. Even if I did call the rape victim a liar and told them they deserved it, it's okay because they were straw-manning me and gaslighting me and having single conversations in which they straight up told me to my face that I was wrong. This right here is why we need fucking neutering for humans.
They didn't just lie about being rape victims. They also lied about me, saying stuff about me that they'd have absolutely no idea about.
Because you're like a faucet that's been shot to pieces. You just leak random bits of info everywhere. Like a goddamn idiot.
Like, how would they know I molested my younger brothers, allegedly? Which was literally...
If an accusation like that comes up, why the fuck would you repeat it? You're an absolute fucking chode.
one of Rogue's arguments he made up on the spot. I obviously don't think that rape victims deserve their abuse. Nobody thinks that. Not even pedophiles. Because pedophiles don't care either way, obviously, when they're going to molest children.
You don't think that, that's why you've said that dozens of times in this video.
The trolls are fully aware that any and all screenshots they can ever show are in the context of me being provoked, strawmanned, gaslighted, or all three.
Ah, the 3 silver bullets of J.J.PLagiarism, usable against any criticism laid at his feet. I was provoked, I was gaslighted, and I was strawmanned. You don't even know what 2 out of 3 of those fucking mean, because someone at the factory surrogated your brain with a fucking dog turd.
And as I said in a community post, actions speak louder than words.
Exactly. For example, you telling rape victims that they deserve it speaks volumes above your pathetic copes and attempts at damage control that came later that were just words of you saying, "Those actions that I did don't count, they're not me, I was angry, I had a sore tummy." You've just basically explained why you're full of shit.
The trolls have absolutely no proof whatsoever that I'm a pedophile, or a zoophile, or I'm mentally ill.
Actually, you have claimed that you're mentally ill a few times as a result of being mocked online for this pathetic lunacy.
I remember this one liar said that I was an attention seeker for suspecting I had PTSD.
So remember, people who've gone through all sorts of SA and have gone to war and watched people die are fakers, whilst J.J.PLagiarisms here, who got called a retard on the internet 5 years ago and still has PTSD from it, is the real deal.
When I talked about it openly on Reddit, after they had psychologically damaged me.
This puppy was sick before they even got there.
Then when I made Debunking Malicious Trolls Part 2, and I had pointed out the trolls had no legitimate evidence of me having a mental illness.
Aside from the Reddit thread that you just admitted to existing, in which you said that you had PTSD, which is a mental health condition.
I got a comment trying to pass things off I said about myself as evidence that I was mentally ill, even though the trolls previously tried to pass it off as attention seeking.
It's both evidence that you're aware that you're fucked up in the head, and that you're also an attention seeker. Those 2 things are not at odds.
That contradiction aside, it explains a lot about the trolls. And it took me way too long to come to terms with that. They weren't mindless idiots who had no idea what they were talking about, because then they wouldn't be trolls. They'd be idiots. No, a troll is someone who deliberately gaslights people to cause problems, but even then, normal trolling is completely harmless.
Normal trolling, as you call it, is dependent on what has been done before it can be called harmless.
But labeling someone a pedophile and trying to make them look like Ted Bundy, that's completely unforgivable behavior.
I actually agree with that. Ted Bundy was competent, and I do feel like you are devaluing his name by comparing J.J.PLagiarisms to him. That's not fair. It's not nice.
And that leads me into the trolls complaining that I didn't accept their shitty peace offer. Now obviously, if I had actually done any of the things the trolls accused me of, a peace deal would be completely out of the question.
It wouldn't. It's called forgiveness. But that's too complicated of a concept for old JJ here, so please continue, we'll just move on.
Unless these guys also believe that all the women Bill Cosby raped should openly make peace with their rapists, who did it for decades and didn't think twice about it.
You aren't a fucked up sex offender, meanwhile you can't make an analogy without rape being involved in some way. God fucking help us if anyone at work asks you how to use the electric pencil sharpener. Well, it's like you rape the machine with a pencil and then it starts screaming and you just shove the pencil further inside. Christ.
Because it's no big deal. It happened years ago, and it's not like sexual assault is one of the most heinous crimes ever.
Well, if that's the case, why do you wish it on so many people for criticizing you on the internet? Why do you wish it on people for merely saying, hey, what you said there isn't actually accurate, true, or fair?
It's on the same level as plagiarism. Those are literally the arguments the trolls made against me, that it's so many years ago and I should just get over it. But it sounds terrible in context, given what they said about me, past or present.
I just really wanted to play that part for you because it's just fucking word salad.
And again, obviously the trolls know this, and they're just acting like idiots because that's far easier than admitting that they were wrong.
The reality in which everybody in the world is a liar and I'm the only one who tells the truth, like that Ricky Gervais film in reverse, is the only credible reality.
But even if they did do that, they'd have to admit the rape victim bullshit was insincere, which I mean, that must border on being highly illegal.
I mean, purely from a heinous corpus perspective, it's not illegal to lie about being a rape victim unless it implicates someone, in which case it would fall into the realms of slander or libel. Like, if I walked around the park telling randos that I was molested as a kid by a clown, the police wouldn't be able to arrest me, because there's no law against that. There's stigma, because you'd be a scumfuck human for doing it, and that would likely linger over you for the rest of your life, but it's not illegal. More importantly though, why would forgiving you for your shitty actions require them to pretend that the rape victim was lying and demand that they threw them under the bus? That doesn't make sense unless you're J.J. fucking plagiarisms.
Like, I dare the trolls to gaslight someone they know in real life, rather than a complete stranger behind the safety of a computer screen.
That would be a lot easier, actually.
See what happens. But in spite of all I've said, I've had people enter my Discord who aren't affiliated with the trolls, who are absolutely convinced that they're genuinely angry at me because they saw their videos.
I think I actually might be one of those people. T.E.
But as I've established throughout this whole video, the trolls are extremely manipulative liars and will do anything to try and get people to turn against me.
You've yet to prove that any lies were told. In fact, in this video you've more or less backed up everything they've said as fact and gone for the angle of, but it's out of context, only to then backpedal and then say, but it was actually untrue, right at the last minute. Absolute doofus.
Because I said a thing. That's completely on them for starting it.
I said something which is entirely the other person's fault for making me say the thing. The mental gymnastics is like mental contortion, I swear to Christ.
I guess there might also be a portion of trolls who genuinely hate me because the trolls' arguments were convincing, and that's probably what happened to Lucky Kennedy.
Lucky Kennedy saw what you said and did, and was disgusted by it. That's what happened to Lucky Kennedy. I've spoken to the guy several times over. He forms his opinions on developing situations, and is usually the first one to speak. So this idea that he's brainwashed or is drip-fed stuff is moronic, and I hope you stub your toe in the dark on your way to take a shit in the night.
Assuming he wasn't just spying on me the whole time. Assuming he wasn't a spy, I wish he'd fucking realize that the trolls are manipulative liars who gaslighted and strawmanned me.
I wish he'd realised that it's the way that I want it to be and not the way that it actually is.
Lucky Kennedy did plenty of that himself, so he's not so innocent either. The trolls endlessly bluffed that I was a false flagger, and
Because you admitted to false flagging.
then when I actually did flag someone who stole my content,
By stole, he means used in a fair use video in a fair use format.
or at least 30% of it, they backed off like cowards.
30%, well, it's not a surefire case of fair use, because me playing 30% of a Breaking Bad episode in the middle of this video would not qualify as fair use, does sound like something you would use in a fair use video. And it's interesting that he deliberately refused us to say how the video was used, or in what capacity, or what parts of it were used, or why he didn't believe it was fair use.
So it's hard to believe Lucky Kennedy doesn't have any self-awareness, or if he's just blindly following what the trolls told him after they won him over. I wonder if he personally justifies blatantly lying about me because I told a rape victim they deserved it. So obviously it's okay to lie about someone when they do something like that.
To be honest, when someone does something like that, I could no longer give a fuck about them. Throw them off a roof or something. Fuck them.
But context aside, it doesn't fucking work that way. But point is, I now fully understand the trolls' tactics. Strawman and gaslight me to get other people to shit on me because I told an alleged rape victim who personally attacked me first that they deserve their abuse.
So, people call you a cunt for being a cunt. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I'm not accepting any peace offer.
Aww. But I fed my dog rancid meat for a week for him to excrete the perfect peace offering.
But what you can do is admit that you were lying and then delete your videos, and if they have a single reference to me, they've gotta go. No loopholes, no exceptions.
So he opts to go for making a demand that is so unreasonable that no one could or would possibly follow it up. And then will now say that if they don't follow through with that demand, the other person is unreasonable. Well, in the spirits of things, I will say this. I'll say that I'll gladly take this video down if J.J.PLagiarisms gets a tattoo that says property of Professor Curious as a tramp stamp and shows it on video from multiple angles so I know that it's not photoshopped, and then films himself showing it to several of his family members and filming their reactions so I know that he didn't fake that either. If he pulls off this purposely unreasonable demand, then I'll do the simple thing for him. He knows that this is unreasonable because a lot of his content is monetized, so it would financially hurt people undeservedly, and a lot of videos that feature him in some way aren't primarily about him. It would damage the structure of videos, video series, and whole projects if people did this, so they aren't going to do this. But because he's now said that this needs to happen in order for there to be peace, and he also gets a clean slate to do the exact same shit all over again, he can attempt to spin it as the reasonable one by saying, "I tried to set terms for peace, guys, but they said no."
Of course they're never gonna do that, because doing that would get themselves cancelled.
Yep, he's already done exactly what I said he'd do. It was so fucking obvious.
So they've got to cling to their bullshit. Do not fall for it.
A lot like you, clinging to yours.
So yeah, that's where I went wrong in describing the trolls. They knew exactly what they were doing. And in fact, they planned for all this. And any others are just stupid people who are easily manipulated by the term rape victim and are so spineless they can't think past that. So yeah.
I could equally say that anyone who is stupid enough to listen to this absolute twaddle and not think that you're a dumb prick is too easily manipulated by the terms gaslighting and strawmanning and is too spineless to think past that.
That's the thing about every screenshot the trolls post about me. They pretend I wasn't lashing out at them, and I was actually serious about what I said.
But you were serious about what you said, and that's why you keep saying it. No, people have pointed out that you lash out at people as you say this shit. Why are you lying?
Now, I don't regret putting the fraud victim in her place.
Go and fuck yourself, you miserable dog-ogling twat.
But I regret how I let my anger get the best of me.
It says a lot about you, actually, that you don't regret the shitty things you said, just that you weren't super composed while saying it.
The bitch was taunting me.
The bitch he is referring to is the victim who tried to reason with J.J.PLagiarisms and inform him that what he said wasn't okay. I just want that to be very clear on the record.
And looking for an excuse to dig up dirt on me.
A pointless exercise. You're like an anus stuck into the ground, volcanically erupting dirt in every direction.
But then again, I was 16 at the time, and was incredibly naive.
That fucking excuse doesn't work when you haven't changed a jot between the age of 16 and 21. At 21, the shit that I said and did at 16 was alien to me. I didn't care about the arguments and spat that I had that long ago, and I certainly wasn't dying on those hills. You have just under 5 years left of brain development, and you've more or less passed the years where most of the significant growth is supposed to happen. So I think you're pretty fucked, mate.
So I fell for the bait in front of me. Frankly, I feel even more justified than I was before, now that I've had this revelation.
What fucking revelation? That things are somehow even less your fault than they were before, even though it clearly is your fucking fault, and its continuation isn't down to anyone but yourself. The only revelation that you fucking need is that you've wasted 5 years of your life obsessing over the fact that one day 5 years ago you weren't the smartest person in the room, and one day you looked at tits and said and did things that weren't cool. If you'd fucked off on day one of this mess, or focused purely on inoffensive Star Wars shite, and then came back at 21 and said to your trolls, hey, I was looking back over the shit that I said when I was 16 and I was a bit of a prick back then, you wouldn't have even had to have asked before people would have removed the videos. I'd actually bet that a lot of people would say, sure, now that you're a functioning adult, shit that you said and did 5 years ago, which clearly isn't reflective of your character anymore, shouldn't really be carried with you. But because you're so fucking obsessed, you've added to this every few months for 5 years, and fueled this thing to the point where it is never going to end. This is by design, as JJ is the kind of guy who probably got overlooked by his teacher in high school. And this is the only way anyone notices him or recognises him for anything. Even though it's negative, even though it's pathetic, everyone is listening to him, and he cannot lose that.
That the trolls wanted this all to happen so they could sell a controversy, and so stupid people would be emotionally manipulated by it.
Here's the thing, as someone who has exposed quite a few people, you don't have to create monsters on the internet. There's a lot of them. Lance Renee, Ronnie Vane, Andrew Velasco, etc., who are all actual fucking monstrous people who I could make hours of content on talking about what pieces of shit they are and not have to make up a thing about them or manipulate anything at all. I'm dead fucking serious about that one. People were disgusted by you and your actions. They commented on it, and you kept coming back to continue the quote-unquote debate because you simply cannot live without it.
And as much as they try to psychologically torment me for being an idiot, I know I'm not an idiot.
No, you are an idiot. There's absolutely no fucking wriggle room for that.
Naive, certainly, but not an idiot. Far more reliable people I know in the real world have told me that I'm a smart guy. And that's because I'm creative and have an extensive imagination.
You should sue whoever told you that because you're about as creative as Kathleen Lindsay.
That's the kind of intelligence I have.
You make shitty reviews about Star Wars content without having a clue what the fuck you're talking about. You are truly the finest mind of our generation.
but I am susceptible to traps.
You see, I'm smart, but I'm also a complete fucking idiot.
No matter how obvious they look in retrospect.
Or just how obvious they look in general.
And that's my weakness.
Your weakness is also your inability to be wrong, or to not be the hero of your own story, or the smartest person in the room.
But still, the torment I've endured is probably what contributed to my stress, my obesity, and my other problems.
In the spirit of this video, I'm going to assume that he's lying about all of those things to make his critics look bad, and he's actually gaslighting and strawmanning us into thinking that he's a fat elephant who has flashbacks of horror whenever the Special Olympics comes on.
Because they made me genuinely scared that I would be cancelled or doxxed or whatever.
Which is why you keep fueling this shit.
And I'd be an outcast amongst society.
Oh no, then someone would have a thought about you.
But anyone who really knows me, or takes the time to know me, knows I'm not a bad person.
It's a shame that you don't have a sort of medium out there where I can listen to you talk for, say, 15 minutes and form my own opinion on you. That'd be nice.
I don't help the fucking poor, I don't do community service, and I don't even have a job yet.
So you're a loser, and you've done nothing with your life, you have not enriched anyone, and you have not built anything or contributed anything to society. Okay, cool.
But that's fine. I'm completely harmless.
Greatest claim to fame. Allegedly being harmless. This guy, I tell you, he shoots for the fucking stars.
And I know anything I ever said to the trolls, they deserved it.
Just a blanket statement to cover all bases that he's a complete piece of shit.
Because of how horrible they were to me beforehand. And what I said is not reflective of who I am.
No, it is. Make no mistake on that.
Because it was me being angry at the people who caused the problem.
You are the sole cause of this problem. And you know this.
Okay, so that's all I have to say. Goodbye.
Thank fuck.